Have you ever wondered what would happen if the monsters from your favorite horror novels crawled off the page and into your world? For Julian Blackwood, the world's most celebrated horror author, this nightmare became a chilling reality. Picture this. Julian, a recluse, hunched over his antique desk in a sprawling, isolated mansion. Rain lashes against the windows, the wind howls like a banshee, and the only light comes from a single flickering lamp. He's deep in the zone, crafting his next masterpiece, a tale of unspeakable horrors that will keep readers awake for nights. His fingers fly across the typewriter, each key strike like a nail in a coffin, birthing characters so monstrous, so terrifying, they feel almost real. But for Julian, the line between fiction and reality is about to blur in the most horrifying way possible. It all started subtly, a shadow in the corner of his eye that vanished when he looked. A floorboard creaking in an empty hallway, the faint, chilling whisper of his own written words carried on the wind. At first, Julian dismissed it all. The isolation, the long hours, the constant immersion in darkness, it was bound to play tricks on his mind. He'd even tried to laugh it off, thinking, "Julian, you're finally starting to believe your own stories." But then, the occurrences grew more distinct, more impossible to ignore. One night, while writing about a creature called the Gloomweaver, a shadowy figure with elongated, spider-like limbs, he saw it. Just for a second, a long, spindly shadow slithered across the far wall of his study, mimicking the exact description he had just typed. His heart hammered against his ribs. Coincidence, he told himself. Just a trick of the light. The next day, he found a single, black feather on his pillow, identical to the ones that adorned his villain. The Carrion King, a crow-like humanoid entity that feasted on sorrow. He hadn't written about the feather, yet he had only thought of it. It was as if his very imagination was leaking into the world. The strange occurrences were no longer confined to his study. The townsfolk in the nearby village of Oakhaven started reporting bizarre events. A local farmer swore he saw something with too many limbs scurrying through his cornfield at dusk. The town's cheerful librarian, a woman who had known Julian for years, called him, her voice trembling, to report strange, guttural noises coming from the library's basement, a place where Julian's books were the most popular loan. She described the sound as something between a wet sob and a hungry growl. Exact sound Julian had attributed to his creation, the weeping maw. Julian's blood ran cold. These weren't just random, spooky happenings. They were scenes, characters, and details ripped directly from his novels. The Gloomweaver in the cornfield, the weeping maw in the library basement. The Carrion King's feather, it was all connected. A horrifying realization dawned on him. His words weren't just ink on a page anymore. His imagination, the very tool of his trade, had become a gateway, a conduit for these horrors to manifest in the real world. Every sentence he wrote, every monster he conceived, was being given form and life. The architect of nightmares had become the unwilling god of a living hell, and the small, quiet town of Oakhaven was his cursed Garden of Eden. He was no longer just a writer. He was a creator of real-world monsters. The terror escalated from unsettling whispers to a full-blown symphony of screams. The Gloomweaver, no longer content with lurking in cornfields, began to appear in the town's alleyways, its shadowy form terrorizing anyone caught out after dark. Panic gripped Oakhaven. Doors were bolted, windows were shuttered, and a curfew was unofficially declared. The local sheriff, a pragmatic man named Miller, was at his wit's end. He dealt with troublemakers and petty thieves, not creatures that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Then came the night of the Red Bloom. In Julian's latest, unfinished manuscript, he described a parasitic, crimson fungus that grew with unnatural speed, draining the life from its surroundings. That night, under a pale moon, the town square's ancient oak tree began to sprout the grotesque, pulsating red fungus. By morning, the magnificent tree was a withered, gray husk, and the fungus was already creeping towards the nearest buildings. The townsfolk, once his biggest fans, now looked at Julian with a mixture of fear and accusation. They didn't know how, but they sensed he was at the center of this plague of horrors. Sheriff Miller, carrying a shotgun and a face grim with determination, paid Julian a visit. He didn't make accusations. He just looked at Julian, his eyes pleading, and said, "This isn't natural, Julian. It's like something out of one of your books." And in that moment, Julian knew he couldn't hide anymore. He was the cause. He was the only one who understood these monsters because they were born in his mind. He knew their strengths, their weaknesses, their very essence. The guilt was crushing, but it was quickly overshadowed by a sense of responsibility. He had unleashed this hell, and he would be the one to send it back. He was the only one who could. Julian barricaded himself in his study, not to write, but to read. He frantically scoured his own published works and his chaotic, half-finished manuscripts. He wasn't looking for inspiration. He was looking for solutions, for loopholes he might have inadvertently written. If his words could create, could they also destroy? He realized the creatures were bound by the rules he had created for them. The Gloomweaver feared intense, sudden light. The Weeping Maw was repelled by sounds of genuine laughter and joy. The Carrion King, a creature of sorrow, was weakened by acts of courage and defiance. He had written their undoing without even realizing it. He was their author, their god, and he could be their executioner. The final battle wouldn't be fought with guns or brute force, but with knowledge, with understanding, and with the very power that had started it all. The imagination. He knew he couldn't do it alone. He needed the town's help. Julian the Recluse addressed the terrified citizens of Oakhaven in the town hall. He confessed everything. He told them how his imagination had run wild, how his creations had bled into their reality. Some looked at him with disbelief, others with fury, but Sheriff Miller saw the desperate truth in his eyes. Julian laid out the plan. It was insane, a plan straight out of a B-horror movie, but it was all they had. He explained the weaknesses of each creature. They would need floodlights to combat the Gloomweaver, comedy records and old home movies to drive back the Weeping Maw, and unified courage to face the Carrion King. It was a battle for their town, for their reality, and they had to fight it on the author's terms. The climax arrived on a storm-ravaged night. It was as if the world itself was mirroring the chaos in Julian's mind. The creatures, sensing a final confrontation, descended upon the town center in full force. The Gloomweaver slithered from the shadows, its form impossibly dark. The townsfolk, led by the sheriff, activated a network of powerful spotlights, bathing the square in blinding white light. The creature shrieked, a sound like tearing fabric, and dissolved into nothingness. Next, from the direction of the library, came the gurgling sobs of the Weeping Maw. Julian had instructed the people to blast sounds of laughter from every speaker they could find. The cacophony of recorded joy, mixed with the nervous but genuine laughter of the townsfolk, hit the creature like a physical blow. It recoiled, its form destabilizing, before it too faded away. But the worst was yet to come. The Carrion King descended from the sky, a terrifying silhouette against the lightning-filled clouds. It fed on fear and despair, and the town was brimming with it. Hasitlande, a wave of hopelessness washed over the people. This was the master villain, the final boss. Julian knew this confrontation was his alone. This creature was a manifestation of his own deepest fears and insecurities. He stepped forward, his heart pounding, not with a weapon, but with his typewriter. He began to type, not in his study, but right there in the town square. He wrote a new story, a new ending. He wrote about a hero, not a warrior with a sword, but a simple man who finds courage in protecting others. He wrote about a community that, faced with unimaginable darkness, chose unity over fear. He wrote about light, hope, and redemption. As he typed, the words seemed to glow in the stormy darkness. The Carrion King shrieked, weakened not by a physical weapon, but by the narrative itself. It was being unwritten, its very concept being overwritten by a story of hope. With each sentence Julian hammered out, the creature's form flickered and grew more transparent. He was literally rewriting reality, fighting fiction with fiction. He wrote of the dawn breaking, of the storm ending, of the hero realizing that the greatest power wasn't creating monsters, but in conquering the darkness within himself. With a final, furious keystroke, he typed the words, "The End." A blinding flash of light erupted from the typewriter. The Carrion King let out one last, agonizing cry before imploding, leaving behind only a single black feather that drifted to the ground and turned to dust. The storm broke. The sun's first rays pierced through the clouds. It was over. In the aftermath, Oakhaven was changed forever, but it was safe. The crimson fungus withered away, and the lingering sense of dread vanished with the morning mist. Julian Blackwood was no longer just a horror author. He was the town's unlikely savior. He never wrote another horror novel. Instead, he dedicated his life to helping the town rebuild, his hands now used for construction, not for crafting nightmares. He found a new purpose, not in terrifying the world, but in being a part of it. He had faced his own imagination and won. He learned that the most powerful stories aren't the ones filled with monsters and darkness, but the ones that show us how to find the light. And sometimes, to defeat the monsters, you don't need a hero with a sword. You just need a writer with a new story to tell. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the dark corners of the imagination, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more tales of the strange and unexplained.